All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast, but the QA is obviously the important part. Question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation as we check in on headlines. We follow up on news stories. We don't just scan our social media and get outraged because social media is trying to make us all miserable and scared and angry. But I need to jump right in. First of all, I hope everybody out there had a lovely weekend. I'm a couple days off of my antivirals and I'm feeling a bit better. I'm still testing positive for the COVID. I'm still really upset that I my streak came to an end of not getting COVID. But I feel functional. I feel a bit more upright. But I know my voice is not going to have a lot of staying power. So this week, unfortunately, we still have to keep this a shorter show. And I think if you're watching the video stream of this, you can see like anytime I get some kind of like minor infection, my psoriasis flares up. But boy, howdy, am I fighting. Like COVID has taken this to like another level. This is some of the worst like skin face flaring that I think I've had in years. Had a really bad flare up once at Newegg where I had to hire makeup artists just to make me look human again. This has been pretty close. So Simon says, Hypno, I've not yet had COVID, dreading it with my heart condition. Stay vigilant. I am really anxious about this new variant. So when you read up on the flirt variant of COVID, keep your head down, keep a lookout. If you're someone like me who has some other kind of condition or an autoimmune disease or like in Simon's case, if you have a heart condition, do not take this stuff lightly. So many people out there were to my face saying, "Oh, it's just like I had a day of the flu." That is not what I had. I really wish my experience with COVID had been a day or two with the flu, because this has rocked me pretty hard. Hold on, I'm gonna. So just stay safe out there and stay considerate. And also, if you're not feeling well and you still need to go out and get things done during the day, that's one of the amazing things about having access to better medical prevention gear. Like put on a mask. It's maddening to me. Um, I we made it to the year 2020. I'm a 40-year-old man, and I discover that if I put a mask on, it significantly helps my seasonal allergies. It's little things like that that you don't really take into consideration as you go about your daily life. Like, no, we actually have a tool that prevents you from breathing in garbage and breathing out garbage if you're infested with garbage. Um, the year 2020, at the peak of our scaredness, and we didn't know the transmission, the spread of COVID, even outside, my wife and I and Lex, we would mask up. And then I would get home and realize, like, I'm not sniffling, I'm not sneezing, my hay fever, my allergies, like, everything's kind of. I was wearing a mask the whole time. So, short story, incredibly long, and I don't want to burn a lot of my voice on this. Um, Take care of yourselves, really look out for yourselves. And the nice thing about looking out for yourself is that it helps you look out for others, right? It's the sympathy and the empathy. And this is one of those great opportunities where the Venn diagram is almost a circle. You know, what you need to do to take care of yourself and prevent yourself from getting this disease is also what helps stop the spread of this disease. Marilyn Pugh says, I've had COVID twice, really bad headache for a couple of days, but that's it. I'm jealous because that is not what I had. And I mean, without going TMI, oh, if I could describe the rainbow of colors that have been coming out of my face from my mucous membranes. From Tech Love and Mama, that sucks. I know how your flares can be so bad from a bad virus. I'm glad you're starting to feel better, and thank you for that. It's nice, like being able to sit upright and do things. I hope everybody had a lovely weekend. I dang it, I was about to try and reach for the mute button, and I couldn't catch that cough. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this either, but I just got to say, yesterday was one of the most incredible displays of athleticism that I think I've seen in a while. First of all, the Euro tournament, Spain versus England was a great game, and I thought England showed a lot of heart. And Spain was, I mean, just watching the game, watching the match, Spain was definitely the more coordinated team of the two. But it was incredible to see how England carried themselves right up to the last minute in keeping Spain sort of at bay. It was a really great game, and again, the score I don't think was sort of reflective of the heart that both teams showed on the field. But then watching the Copa and seeing Colombia and Argentina go 120 minutes, go into extra time, and just to see two teams savagely battling for that length of time, to see the exhaustion on all of the players' faces, and to see a single score arrive, a single goal arrive, like 110 minutes into the game, was just astounding. I don't know if anyone's into football or soccer, as we call it here in the United States, but it was one of those examples of the score was 1-0, and the entire match was a nail biter. Like the joke of, hey, you're gonna come and you'll pay for the whole seat, but you're only gonna use the edge. My wife and I just watching this, like eyes fixed on the television, just constant onslaught from Colombia, really smart and calculated responses from Argentina. Injuries, stupid decisions from the stadium to like spray down the grass in the second half, so both teams were sliding around on wet grass, and yet the players still rose to the occasion, and it was astounding. It was incredible athleticism. So, um, yeah, and Scoop, it was bonkers. And to the same point, it was also just how crazy, um, how poorly the event and the venue were handled here in the United States. Watching people bum rush the gates, security just kind of letting people in, but then the stadium was at capacity, so people who actually paid for tickets couldn't get in. I mean, it was a ridiculous event. All of the surroundings of it were a complete and utter train wreck, and yet, and even during the match, things that happened during the match were some of the stupidest decisions I think I've ever seen from an organization hosting a venue, hosting an event of this importance, and yet the players still rose to the occasion. And I feel like that deserves an incredible kudos. Yeah, I mean, if you can just catch highlights, it's not sufficient to watch guys on the field run their hearts out for 120 minutes. Um, it really was incredible. Again, I just think it kind of goes to show there are some sports where you want to see those big plays and those higher scores. Like that makes for a more impressive back and forth or even teams. But when you see like 0-0 into 110 minutes, you think, oh, that must have been a really boring game, and it's quite the opposite. It's actually like the tension is just ratcheted to a degree where it's like I can't look at the TV, but I can't look away from the TV. It really was incredible. Um, well, yeah, so I mean, like this is what I mean, Scoop. The sprinklers are normal, but they ran them long because the halftime show didn't help. So Shakira was the halftime performer, and I don't know, like halftime performances in football, in soccer, aren't really things, right? I mean, that's not a thing. And I kind of agreed with the Colombian coach, where it was like, yeah, that's cool. We've got Shakira, but you've had to extend the halftime, which kind of throws off the rhythm of a good football match. So instead of 15 minutes, it's 20 minutes. Well, I mean, like that's the time that you would normally be warming up your guys. They would be back out on the field, getting ready to play the second half. I mean, it's just things like that. Like all of the decisions that went down, and yeah, you normally run the sprinklers at halftime, but running them longer meant that, the first 10 minutes of the second half, the guys were running around in like a slip and slide. And you saw players tumbling all over the place in the entire second half because they were playing in Florida and it's humid AF and none of that was drying off. So again, it's like every single minor decision that could have played out in a bad way played out in a bad way. It was like a perfect exercise of everything that could go wrong went wrong, and yet the players still brought an incredible performance to the table. So I just no notes, no notes for the players, lots of notes for the venue. Just absolutely, absolutely incredible. Dave, shareholder value, Juan. Who cares if paying ticket holders get to see the match? We already got their money. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We got to serve up all the advertising in the stadium. Everyone's happy. Hold on one sec. Delicious sip of coffee. And I gotta get back on the water. J Man is gonna have my head if I'm not drinking more water. So I hope you had a lovely weekend. Let's jump into a show proper. I really do have some news links that I want to talk about, but considering that I've been in and out of ridiculous fevers and some days I couldn't even sit upright, I do kind of want to pat myself on the back that I got some stuff out over the last week. And in fact, I got quite a bit. I had to cancel one video and I just put it out instead as a written article. But I do want to do a little housekeeping here because there's been some cool stuff to talk about. So published publicly here, let me screen share real quick. I got a video out on the Unihertz 8849 Tank 3S. These are ridiculous appliances. They're not good phones, but it's incredible to see an everything in the kitchen sink approach to phone design. And I'm also really proud of myself that in the 3S video, I did like a little infomercial dramatic reenactment of how I dropped the Tank 3 Pro on my foot. And in the Tank 3 Pro video, I said, hey, I dropped this. I tried to kind of cushion it with my foot, and I think I really hurt my foot. Looking back on that now, I might have like deep tissue bruise or maybe even have broken something in the top of my foot. So I reenacted that drop for the Tank 3S video to fully express how absurdly large these phones are. Moving right along, scrolling back up here. The other one that I was really excited to get out was this review, the Geekom XT13 Pro. It's another Geekom mini PC running a 13th gen Intel Core i9 in a tiny little form factor. So, dang it! That's two. I'm not going to be able to catch these coughs, and I apologize to the people that are on the replay, especially on the audio version of the replay. I think I need to put this out there. Maybe I'll do it as like a Patreon post or something like that. But I think I need to put this out there. If you have the absolute most powerful CPU, mobile CPU. I mean, these are little mini PCs that are built on laptop chips, and this is what I think is so exciting. But if you have the absolute most powerful mobile CPU, is that too lopsided an experience? Because I want folks to think most of the time, I would say like 95% of the time that you see a 9 series CPU, like an Intel Core i9 or a Core Ultra 9 in a laptop, it's not using Intel's integrated graphics as the only solution. Usually that's paired with some kind of NVIDIA mobile GPU. And I feel like once we start getting into the more expensive tier of mini PCs, yes, there are plenty of applications that will absolutely use up that incredible amount of CPU performance. But you're still saddled with just sort of the basic graphics experience. So again, I'm kind of I'm a little torn. I'm not entirely sure how to categorize an experience like that because for me, that gets really exciting for things like running a little home media server. In fact, the reason why I'm not holding up the XT13 Pro right now is because over the weekend, I took the time to migrate my Plex server over to the XT13 Pro because I had a little AMD machine that was running Plex, and Plex still runs better with Intel's QuickSync video transcoding technology. So I swapped it over, and yeah, I saw like a 30% improvement in like streaming video and transcoding video on the fly and then saving transcodes on mobile devices. I mean, it was like noticeably quicker at doing a lot of those headless server kinds of tasks. So I'm not trying to say that more CPU performance and some of those Intel technologies are a no-go, but I think there's a conversation, like the conversation we've been having with X Elite. What's the point of having this super powerful CPU if I can't play the video games on it? And you're like, well, that's exactly what Intel's 13th gen was. It was this crazy powerful CPU. Core i5, Core i7, Core i9 were ridiculously powerful CPUs, but yeah, the GPUs were garbage. The GPUs are worse than X Elite. So again, I want to put that out there and put that idea out there because I think it's something to kind of expand on, and I think it kind of helps position these for the right consumer. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of people out there who want a nice, premium, powerful home computing experience or need like a good work machine. And that, I mean, you've got tons of multitasking capability and a huge amount of RAM ready to go in one of these mini PCs. So anyway, I think it's kind of it's an open topic, and especially with so many manufacturers trying to. Uh-oh, I just heard something click. Am I still broadcasting? Oh, that was creepy. Okay, I'm still getting comments, so I'm gonna assume the stream is still on. It would just be my luck, right? But yeah, my NOS just made a little click over, so something happened here. Okay, Dave Burns is saying we're still here. Apologies. Maybe that was the electrical company saying, "Move on, Juan. We don't want to spend an hour talking about mini PCs." So, to end that part of the conversation, I'm going to open up that discussion, and I'd really love some feedback. I really would, because I feel these conversations are incomplete when we do the exact same kind of review strategy. I ran a Geekbench, and here's a Cinebench score, and then I played Genshin Impact on it. I don't even know, like what game, God of War. Maybe that's what PC reviewers are. I don't know. I'm getting silly here right now. Pup on Tech, an hour about mini PCs would be cool. Yeah, but I want to save that for like an hour on mini PCs, and we've got other stuff that we need to talk about here. A couple other things, like I said, I had to cancel this as a video. It kind of broke my heart because I really liked my script. Um, dang it. Here, let me get this screen sharing here again. But I wrote this up as an article. It's like, I don't know, it's almost 3,000 words on smartwatches. Pixel Watch 2 versus OnePlus Watch 2 versus TicWatch Enduro long-term comparison, the other Wear OS smartwatches. Taking a look at three Wear OS watches, now especially that Fossil is out of the game. These are kind of the main alternatives in North America. So obviously, if you're in the EU, you've got access to a couple other players. I think Oppo has a watch out. You could go with a Xiaomi. Xiaomi has a Wear OS watch out, but none of those are sold here. So I kind of wanted to look at in a market where we know the vast majority of smart watches are going to be Apple Watches, and then Samsung is going to be a distant second place, the Galaxy Watch. Those are your top two players. And I think it's fair to say that because of advertising and marketing, the fact that you can probably more easily find them in carrier stores, those are the two that the vast majority of North Americans are going to opt for. But a watch should still be a personal wearable style accessory. It's not just what does the technology do. For me, it's also important to point out, is this technology locked into an ecosystem where even Samsung will kind of pull a few features out of the watch if you try to pair their watch with a different Android phone? This, for me, this trio kind of represent the last vestiges of old school Wear OS. They're open. You install a companion app, and then everything that you want to do on the watch is accessible no matter what phone you pair it with. Like I've got my Mobvoi paired to a OnePlus. I had the Pixel Watch paired to my OnePlus. I switched it over to my Vivo, and then now Marie is using it with her Pixel. I mean, it's like you can move these things around, but then also more importantly, fit and style. What I wear is not going to work for Marie and vice versa. So I wrote up a lot. It's talking about long-term experiences, the sort of more anecdotal, which one tracks workouts better, which one was getting GPS locks faster, and then into a little of the more granular health tracking. Like for example, the Pixel Watch 2 has ECG, and I think that's pretty cool. But Mobvoi has a different kind of technology that can also kind of track AFib. So if you're worried about heart health, if you know that there's a setting for this, you could maybe also do something similar. And again, anything that you do with these types of fitness bands, you should also be talking to a doctor if that's like a concern. It was kind of a shock. I have COVID, so I'm checking like my blood ox. Like I'm really trying to make sure that I'm breathing and pumping blood properly. But then Marie actually did have a little finger tester, and it's incredible. Man, I'm sitting there and it's like a 30-second scan, and oh yeah, I'm at like 98%. And then she brings out the little finger scanner, and I put my finger in, and it's like, bam, instant. You're like, okay, it's cool that my watch can do this thing to try and estimate how much oxygen is in my blood. A purpose built medical tool to do that is a lot more efficient. It's just a lot better. So, like, yeah, like 3,000 words. I really wanted this to be a video, but I just could not. I just couldn't. I couldn't sit up and shoot the whole thing and edit it all down and then capture all of the B-roll. And it was just so much faster to take some photos. So this is in early access on the Patreon, and then I'll probably publish this in a couple days on somegadgetguy.com. The other article that will probably do the same, again, published first on the Patreon and then out on somegadgetguy.com in a bit, is just a quick follow-up on AI. The title is AI is still kind of, dang it. AI is still kind of super dumb, Windows Photos Edition. And it's a quick follow-up because the Windows Photo app has actually been broken for the last week. So you double click on a photo and then just nothing happens. And Microsoft finally fixed that a couple days ago. So I wanted to go back and see, is there anything useful in all of these overhyped Copilot creativity tools, right? You put in a photo and then you tell it to do something to the photo, and then AI takes over and shows you a wonderful creativity. And it's kind of dumb. It's really dumb. I'm going to spoil one of the conclusions of the article. This is absolutely one of those features that someone's going to play with once, maybe twice, just for the novelty of it, and then will promptly forget that that tool exists. I'm going to drink some water here. All right. So that gets us through housekeeping. That's like four whole things. I got like four whole things out, and I'm pretty stoked about that. I've got some videos and I've got some other articles kind of planned over the next week. I'm working with another company on a sponsored video that I think will be kind of interesting to talk about and helps reframe some of my conversation on AI, because I've been really not impressed with AI so far. I mean, the things that I like the best are basically just iterative evolutions of the same kind of machine learning MPU tech that we've had since Kirin smartphones, Huawei smartphones could do subject identification in the camera app. It's not really that exciting if you've been paying attention to all the things that are coming out. So I did a terrible job of organizing my list of news links, but we're going to jump in here and knock out just a couple little news articles. Everything that we're going to be talking about, all of the show notes, all of the housekeeping posts, and all of the news articles will be available on Week's blog on somegadgetguy.com. Got a whole list of links. You can track everything that we're talking about this week. Starting off, I'm kind of at random here. It was just literally the first article that I had up. I'm not trying to slam Apple here. I'm bringing up this news article because I feel it continues. It's evidence that continues to show a certain kind of media bias that always gives Apple the benefit of the doubt. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but shortly before the launch of Apple's mixed reality headset, there were all of these pandery, low effort editorials about how only Apple could save VR. It doesn't matter that the Meta Quest is selling hundreds of thousands of units every quarter. The only thing that can really get people there, the only company that can really do it, is the Apple. The Apple can do the mixed reality and the virtual reality, and they'll do it better. And that was obviously bunk. Like, if anyone were rationally looking at the VR, AR, XR market, no one company walking into this space, even Apple, was going to be capable of dramatically turning the tides of a face computing technology. But again, on the potential of the rumors and the speculation and the stock price, Apple gets special consideration even before they've entered a market. And now, a report from the Financial Times here, if I can screen share, there we go. Apple seeks its killer app for $3,500 Vision Pro headset. Tech giant is struggling to attract content from developers for innovative device that goes on sale in Europe this week. So, from the article, the lack of a killer app to encourage customers to pay upwards of $3,500 for an unproven new product is seen as a problem for Apple as the Vision Pro goes on sale in Europe on Friday. Let's see. It was also somewhere in this article they mention that they haven't broken 100,000 sales. Okay, estimates from IDC, a tech market researcher, suggest Apple shipped fewer than 100,000 units of the Vision Pro in the first quarter, less than half what rival Meta sold of its Quest headsets. Now, this is a long article that then goes into all of the developers and they get, prime quotes from all the people that are, well, I'm going to stick with Apple. You gotta, it's important to be there from the beginning, and then when you put out an app, it's people will spend more on the app because it's Apple, and it's just the better long term strategy. But throughout this article, the Financial Times is saying developers don't want to put effort into a platform with hundreds of thousands of users. They want to put good software efforts into platforms with millions of users. And right now we're watching developer interest plunge. The number of apps that have come out for Vision Pro pales in comparison to the same time frame for the first iPad or the first iPhone. However, we want to judge the success of a new market for Apple, this isn't doing that well. But again, because it's Apple, we have to gild that lily with every single potential positive, unlike any other company. And every tech reviewer that goes out there and says you should not buy something for the potential of what it might do in the future, that never holds with Apple. When it comes to tech reviewers and tech journalists writing up articles about Apple products, it's always, well, but this will be the future. Apple will get it done. Apple long term, they'll eventually bring out a cheaper headset, and then more people will use it, and then it'll matter. So if a cheaper headset matters, that's the Meta Quest. It's already here. And it's already here and selling at a dramatically higher level than the Vision Pro. And it already has an installed base of millions of users. The Meta Quest platform of headsets is rivaling the Xbox in terms of adoption. And if you were to bring some of that developer effort over to the Quest and be able to translate a lot of these more productivity style virtual reality and mixed reality experiences, you'd have an order of magnitude more customers to approach. But that's not the tone we take in these conversations. The tone we take in these conversations is, well, obviously the Meta Quest is lesser than the Vision Pro. So just keep waiting. Keep waiting. I mean, Apple's going to get it right. But Apple was the one that was supposed to save VR. And they totally haven't. Because to save VR, to be the company that's really going to blow up VR, you have to be able to show consumers there's a reason to put the computer on your face. So when we have articles from financial institutions, from financial blogs, talking about no killer app, that's what Apple was supposed to do. Apple shouldn't be getting credit for putting some nice new technologies into a headset. The pitch was saving VR and moving VR into a new era. That means Apple needed the killer app. Apple needed to be able to demonstrate this is why you put the headset on. But they didn't do that. They brought out the hardware and then said, and now our developers will make cool apps that will make you want to put this on your face. So Apple has done nothing to move the needle on mixed reality. Well, they've done a little, just because I am excited about those new OLEDs. Like, okay, they moved the needle on the hardware, but that's not where we had a problem. That's not the problem we had with mixed reality. Had to catch my breath there for just a second. So, this article does go on to talk about some other things, and there's some interesting quotes in there, and I hope people will actually read through, because some of the bar graphs just talking about, like, VR adoption. There was another analyst that came out over the weekend, like, oh man, like, interest in VR has dropped, like, a crazy percentage over the last week. And the hook to the article was literally only virtual reality headsets. And I'm really struggling to think who still sells a normal virtual reality headset. Because almost every single headset is now on the spectrum of mixed reality. Even the PlayStation VR, PSVR 2, has some pass-through capabilities, inside-out tracking. That's mixed reality. So interest in only blocking out the world on an older style headset has plummeted. And that was like the big headline. Because obviously, Meta Quest sales are still up. Vision Pro, that's out now, and people are talking about trying to develop for it. And even the other players, like a PSVR 2, have some kind of inside-out tracking and spatial awareness and video pass-through. So I just thought it was kind of funny, like, oh, VR. Well, yeah, they're really, I mean, even the HTC is trying to bill itself as a more mixed reality productivity solution than just, hey, you play some games on it. I guess maybe they're talking about the Index. I guess no one's buying the Valve Index anymore. So there you go. 60% down on VR. It's hilarious. So I'm frustrated because, like, I want face computing to succeed. I really do. And again, there was all of this promise that, like, if Apple could walk into this space, they would bring something to the experience that would be special. But they brought hardware to the experience and they didn't bring the killer app. And I don't think anyone really knows what that is. What's going to convince someone to put a helmet on? And that's not an easy question to answer. So, let me get this out of the way here. Sorry, I know I'm missing some of these comments, and you guys are bringing up some really great stuff. Um, so like I guess like some of the comments here are saying things like Al Sabakli is saying it's massively more capable than the Quest, and that's absolutely true. But that's what I mean when I say Apple brought hardware to a software and solutions fight. Um, you have an M2 in that headset. You have all of the potential, you have all of the performance. But when we really break down the experience, the Quest was already capable of doing more in the state that it was before the launch of Vision Pro, and Meta, they iterated really fast on bringing some of a better polish to some of the pass-through capabilities, and they already had a lot of apps that were doing things like, hand tracking. Those experiences were already more mature on Quest for apps that you could use with Quest. Like, the piano tutorial app looked really, really cool. It tracks your piano, tracks your fingers, and it turns like a real piano into like Guitar Hero. And I don't know how deep in the weeds we really want to get on things like visual acuity. So I'm really excited about those 4K OLEDs, but to solve some of the issues with like screen dooring and pixelation and how the optics sort of magnify pixel sizes, Apple is doing a lot more aliasing. The lenses in Vision Pro soften up the resolution, and it's actually a comparable, if than what you can get out of a lower resolution headset like the Quest. It's like every single time we try and just say on the surface, Quest falls behind Vision Pro. There's kind of an asterisk there. So you have a ton more compute power. Well, a ton more compute power means more power draw, and you get that stupid soap on a rope battery that needs to be popped out with regular use. It's not as simple as, well, I just put in the more powerful processor. I'm reviewing laptops and mini PCs. It's never as simple as, well, it's got a more powerful processor. So what do developers do with it? Because if a developer really taxes that more powerful processor, the experience is going to be very short lived. That is not the killer app for incorporating augmented reality into our daily lives. That means I can't count on the headset to be ready to go when I need to just interact with the world around me and get this information in a more organic fashion. It's nuanced, and Apple marketing is not nuanced. So that's the frustration of, if you really pay attention to what's been going on in the VR space, how fixated I've been on face computers since the original Google Glass. It's why I feel we've missed these incredible opportunities to bring practical consumer experiences to face computing. Just putting up information at eye level is so much more difficult than any company seems to realize. And we've gotten so close to getting it right on a number of individual products, and then we don't follow up. Because really, that's what we need. We need all of the data from all these different faces and all these different eyeballs and all these different cultures and regions and languages. And that's what's going to move us forward. It's not going to be AI and playing iPad apps out at arm's length where I could have played that iPad app on a television. But the headset is more powerful than a first generation M1 MacBook Air. That's not going to do it. So that was rambling. Again, apologies. I'm trying to like kind of scan comments as stuff is coming in, but it's there's a lot. I'm a little foggy too, so expect more rambling. Let me drink some more water here real quick. So Asabakli, just one more and we'll wrap this up. Depends on the use case. Well, that's what I've been saying. uh, the Vision Pro is perfect for what we're doing with an AR company at the moment. High-end experiences with groups of people. Nobody will wear the thing for more than 20 minutes. And I don't see where that's structurally or fundamentally different than using any other kind of VR or AR solution. And it's I'm sure it's nicer in that this is premium build quality, and it is fluid at kind of moving you through space, and especially when you're talking about a very short window of interactivity, 20 minutes. What I'm talking about are augmented reality experiences, and the pitch that Apple made, not me. I am not putting this on the Vision Pro and trying to make it into something that it's not. But Apple is talking about something that is going to be a constant companion throughout your day and does not achieve a better slate of experiences than a significantly less expensive Meta Quest. And I think for a lot of the experiences that they're trying to pitch, they would have done better with a simpler heads up style display, incorporating this information into a sleeker or more organic experience that was lighter on the face, could maybe have been powered with smaller batteries, didn't necessarily need the same quantity of compute power that's built into it. So your first sentence there depends on the use case. What you're describing is not what Apple pitched. So we're already taking it away from the promises and from the marketing that Apple presented us with and how this was going to change and revolutionize our lives, and refining that into, well, yeah, I mean, if you put this on for like 20 minutes, it's really great. If you put any if you put any headset on for like 20 minutes, you're not dealing with fatigue, you're not dealing with sweating it up. You're streamlining that into its best possible wow experience. Right? You go into an Apple store and you can get a half-hour demo. Well, after a half hour, you're still not at that point where you would have been fatigued, you would have faced eye strain, you would have sweated into the headset more dramatically. That is the best possible window of using a face computer. So again, this isn't to slam Vision Pro, it's to point out this is a dev kit that was not ready to be a consumer-facing product. Apple does not have a killer app. Developers are increasingly less interested with it. Sales have plummeted, and they're only just now opening up other markets and regions for people to try and figure out what they might want to do with it. So that's not saving VR. That's developers saving VR, not Apple. And again, Apple gets every single special consideration that the potential is there. And I don't see it. Yeah, I mean, the demos are great. Now, imagine from the demo, the tech boy said, I had a demo and I actually like it. The demos are super, super fun. Now imagine trying to keep that on your face for a couple hours. What are you doing with it? Try moving the compute experience from your MacBook to the Vision Pro and using that for an extended period of time. Edit a whole video on it. That's what I mean. It's like everything that Apple has presented is very good for the ecosystem and for the tie-in between different Apple products, but it doesn't move the needle and it doesn't convince beyond. It's sort of like I have a nice monitor where I didn't have a nice monitor. And I have $300 headsets that can give me a nice 1080p monitor where I don't have a nice 1080p monitor. It's not very compelling what Apple has brought to the table to try and convince a consumer to spend $3,500. Dave Burns. No, I mean, I want to give it credit. You know, Dave says sales haven't plummeted if it never took off. The initial surge of sales was actually a lot higher than I was expecting it to be, especially knowing that we're probably into somewhere around 500,000 units. That's actually a lot higher than what I was expecting Vision Pro to launch at. But I'm not surprised that into the first quarter of 2024 that we've satisfied the current developer interest in Vision Pro, and we're not seeing it proliferate. We're not seeing it expand into the consumer space. As I said, before the thing was in anyone's hand, this is Apple misrepresenting a dev kit. This is a very expensive, very sexy dev kit like a HoloLens. I don't expect to see people walking around with a HoloLens. I expect developers to use it to work at the high level of playing with augmented reality applications. That's where Apple made their big mistake. So anyway, I don't want to keep talking about Apple because Vision Pro's stupid. Moving right along, this one's pretty quick. Coming by way of Ars Technica. Oh, I'm sorry. The Financial Times article was written up by who? Tim Bradshaw and Michael Acton at Financial Times. Sorry, I forgot to credit appropriately. Ars Technica, written up by my man crush John Brodkin. Nearly all AT&T subscribers' call records stolen in Snowflake cloud hack. 6 months of call and text records taken from AT&T Workspace on cloud platform. Hold on, let me take a quick cough here. All right. An AT&T spokesperson confirmed to ours that the data was exposed in the recently reported attack on AI data cloud provider Snowflake, which also affected Ticketmaster and many other companies. As previously reported, Snowflake was compromised by a group that obtained login credentials through information stealing malware. Quote, in April, AT&T learned that customer data was illegally downloaded from our workspace on a third-party cloud platform, AT&T announced today. AT&T said it is working with law enforcement and, quote, understands that at least one person has been apprehended. AT&T said it does not believe that the stolen call data has been made publicly available. The call and text records identify the phone numbers with which an AT&T number interacted during this period, including AT&T landline customers. It also included counts of those calls or texts and total call durations for specific days or months. So, I feel this is a security black eye, but as this is one of those stories that's kind of unfolding, there was another article that just recently said I caught it this morning, that there is the potential that some of this data has made it out to some form of blockchain. So whoever compromised Snowflake security might already be trying to distribute this data. I am hoping, from my read on this situation, and someone please correct me in the headline, in the comments, I'm sorry if I might maybe have this a little wrong. This is one of those that we need to keep an eye on how massive telecommunications companies store and traffic our user data, because they're doing business with other companies that can't seem to properly secure their platforms. So AT&T apparently doesn't want to build their own cloud services to field their customer data. So they're contracting out to other cloud providers, and then that cloud provider got compromised. I feel an organization as large as AT&T and an ISP that makes as much money as AT&T should probably be more concerned with safeguarding their customer data if they're going to track all of this data and store all of this data and sell all of this data. Then I think there need to be bigger penalties for when they misstep. So it sucks that their partner got compromised, but that's ultimately a problem for AT&T doing business and not safeguarding their customer data. I'm hoping that this is one of those stories where we can talk to our family and friends and say, listen, the FTC has reported ISPs track everything you do on the internet. And now phone calling is a function of the internet. It is not a standalone communication standard. It is data that goes through the internet pipe. We should be careful about how we interact with services, how we interact with institutions like banks. We need to be vigilant. But I'm hoping that the information that was stolen in this attack is not to the degree that will impact people individually. I'm hoping that the data that was compromised is not like is not going to lead to rampant abuse, other passwords being compromised, identity theft, credit card theft, that kind of security nightmare. But it also should give us pause that AT&T is not doing a good job with any of our data if this is one of the potential vectors that an attacker can use to compromise telecommunication security and get access to that company's customer data. So anyway, if I have the take on that wrong, because from what I've read, so far this has mostly been who the communication information, phone calls, text messages, that kind of a thing was stored for some reason through Snowflake. That doesn't seem to me totally possible. If someone is giving out passwords or personal information in text messages, that could be an issue. But again, as a traditional vector for compromising security, acquiring logins and passwords, and getting things like social security numbers, this doesn't seem to be the situation happening with AT&T right now. So again, if I have that wrong, please let me know. But this is one of those where, thankfully, and I hate that I can say thankfully, it's not like go and contact your grandma and help her change all of her passwords today. It doesn't seem to be that kind of exploit or that kind of security issue. Yeah, Barry, this is actually a little bit of a concern too. Barry says, "What's so scary is normally someone that has an MVNO is protected unless the MVNO is directly attacked." AT&T said, "Not this time." So again, if you're on an MVNO that uses AT&T as its primary network, your call and texts have to travel through AT&T's network, and even though you're not doing business with AT&T, it AT&T is still hoovering up all of the call and text information that goes over their network. I've actually started, like, my wife and I communicate almost exclusively through Telegram now. I'm trying to push some of our other family members into using some kind of non SMS based group messaging system. It's difficult because we just do have some iPhone owners and some Android users, and there's kind of like a cross pollination of messaging already. But I'm trying to like push them more towards encrypted data versus this type of a solution where our text messages are, if they're on AT&T, my text messages were likely also tracked because I'm not an AT&T subscriber, but if I text someone on AT&T, well, now they have a record of that communication too. It's like kind of my issue that would have been with recall. When one company starts just sucking up all of that user data, everyone else's information is compromised too because they've demonstrated they can't keep that information safe. This is why, like, increasingly, one of the biggest so we look at like this landscape, and I feel the common core disease, we have a lack of privacy legislation in the United States. There's a lot of precedent that we have for protecting privacy, but I feel we've gotten to a point with these massive tech corporations that we need to write legislation focused specifically, with language focused specifically on safeguarding user privacy. And I think we need to take steps in the same direction that the EU has taken, where that's great. You saved a bunch of money by not building your own cloud infrastructure, AT&T, but your partner was compromised. That's still your customer data, and you paid another company to try and protect that data. There needs to be a bigger penalty for AT&T slipping and giving up all of this information. And it needs to be sizable enough that it hurts. So all the money that they saved in just contracting out their cloud solutions to another player, that needs to now that needs to hurt. It needs to be painful that they fell afoul of their user privacy. We need some kind of focused and concerted privacy legislation here in the United States. And it's I think we've been long overdue proper debate and real conversations about that kind of consumer protection. Hold on one second. I'm gonna drink some coffee here and get a little more caffeine. Oh, Pup on Tech. Yeah, I know. Remember, Telegram is only end-to-end encrypted inside private chats. Yeah, I know that there's some back and forth, but if you remember Pup on Tech, it's also why I've been looking at maybe just trying to run my own messaging server. Again, I just upgraded my Plex server to this cute little XT13 Pro with an Intel Core i9 in it. I'm pretty confident I could probably also find some kind of solution to run a little messaging server, and then it would all be just a family group chat solution. I there are a couple pieces. I just need to put a couple parts together, and I think I can pull that off. Um, anyway, I'm going a little crazy just on like trying to untangle myself from popular services. I don't use Google Photos at all anymore, but I haven't been able to get Image working on any of my hardware right now with the current way that I've got like my storage spread out. It's like little bit by bit. I want to have my own locally trained AI hardware that doesn't talk to anything server side, but it can do things like basic face scanning and find people in photos and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. And then it would all be my cloud that no one else would have any access to. So right now we're poking around with Telegram. It's fun. It's fine. It's just like the little messages back and forth between me and my wife, and oh, excuse me. It's been fun for a couple little group chats, but nothing that I would ever have placed any kind of security presence on. But it's still operating at a better tier than SMS and MMS group messaging. So it's a win for now. Hold on one second. Yeah, Pup on Tech. I mean, the projects are actually a lot of fun if you like to tinker. Pup on Tech says, I've been trying to move to local stuff as well, but moving towards that for the past year or so with my Raspberry Pi. And so I think what I really want to, I've put this off for so long, but I want to get a Raspberry Pi just to make a little Pi hole. Like a little thing that just kind of scrubs my network from certain kinds of communication and advertising. And, it's not like a network reinforced, corporate grade firewall or something like that. But I think a little Pi hole would just be kind of a fun project. And it's, like, I don't even need to make a video on it. There are tons of videos about making like a little Pi hole. It's fine. This is really fun saying pie hole over and over and over again. Vasicos, yeah, it's funny. It's my cloud and you can't have any. It's that old Eddie Izzard joke. Like, well, we only had 3 bits and we didn't know there'd be such a rush. You can't have any of my cloud. Flag. Oh, and JJ, I have. I need to follow up more. JJ, this is a good recommendation. Check out the self-hosted podcast by Jupiter Broadcasting, and I'll throw out a plug for them as well. I've gotten a bit of the bug, but again, it's also just like, how do I make it through my day? How do I get another video done? How do I work on this project or handle another sponsored video? And it's been taking the time to get the right parts and pieces in place. So like I was running Plex on a little AMD mini PC, and now switching over to the Intel mini PC, I think I've got a better headless server in place to then build off of for some of these other projects that I want to do. And it's just part by part by part. I mean, the Plex library that I'm running between my DVD, Blu-ray, and music collection, it takes the better part of a day to kind of scan that stuff out. Even if for some of the times, like you can go into your Plex library and try to migrate, but genuinely I found the better experience is just letting Plex rescan. But if I let Plex rescan on the library that I've got, that's a weekend project of just letting it run. So again, it's the time. It's the investment in time. I've burned days on trying to get image working with nothing to show for it. And that's a problem. So now my next strategy is going to be, well, image tends to work better in Linux, but Linux has terrible support for network drives. So what if I run Linux inside Windows on this little XT system, and then I can plug in all of the image bits with better consistency at pointing to a networked drive, because Windows is actually kind of encapsulating the whole experience. Is like that takes days to figure out the problem solving on how to get there, let alone actually trying the solution and seeing if it runs and if it works. That also takes days to accomplish. And I can't just spend days focused on that issue. There's so much more that we need to do over the course of a week. Let me take another drink of water. Oh, Pup on Tech, I need to try that. Pup on Tech says, my new main thing is running my own Spotify. I'm running Navidrome that streams to the app Symphonium on Android via the local network or through Cloudflare tunnels. Off the podcast, just so that I don't have to keep going hardcore nerdy on like home server stuff. Let me know how that's working for you, because I've gotten lazy. I was looking at other music streaming solutions, and I kind of just leaned on Plex for that too. So I let Plex scan my music library, and then this new XT does a much better job of real time conversion, transcoding between my FLAC files and streaming an MP3. Excuse me. So for me, it was more, I wanted to try and find a solution that I could tap into for quick streaming and storage when I was on like LTE or 5G. And Plex has been working okay for that. It's not bulletproof, and I still have my Qobuz subscription too. So I'm not trying to say like I've completely walked away from music streaming services, but I have a pretty hefty music library of FLAC files, and when I want access to those, I know exactly what I want to listen to. Plex has worked okay. It's laggy and there's some delay, especially when you do need to transcode a FLAC file. But I've been pretty pleased. So anyway, we can chat. I'd love to chat and just see what your experiences have been. The Tech Boy, where do you get the music, or do you buy the MP3s? So a good chunk of my FLAC files I bought from HD Music. I'd have to look up where I got them from. I'm really sad because like I have a ton of just 16-bit FLAC files from CDs. I had a wall of media library from back in the day, and it was all in our storage unit, just a giant Rubbermaid bin of DVD and CD jewel cases that I never got rid of. Even through the MP3 revolution, I've always just kind of on the cusp of that been an audiophile enough nerd that I wanted the sort of higher quality files to sort of live in archive. And the best way to archive that has been keeping the CD. And so I went on a tear a while back, just re-ripping CDs to FLAC instead of to MP3, because even on phones, storage isn't prohibitively expensive from just storing the FLAC file. So that's kind of been the main library of music, is just an ancient collection. But then I've kind of gotten back on, instead of paying for a long while, it was, instead of paying for Spotify, I'll buy an album a month, right? I've got a great music library. I can kind of find new music through YouTube if I want to listen that way. And then instead of paying for this huge library, I'd buy directly from an artist. I buy whatever they would have to offer. And I would always get really excited, like a while back when Run the Jewels came out with RTJ4, they sold a version just high quality WAV. So I have those as WAV files, and then I saved them as FLAC files. So again, it's a broad acquisition, and it's not nearly as easy as it used to be, where you could just go to a music store, or also like how we're seeing this like fall in DVD and Blu-ray. There was the story recently where Sony is going to be getting rid of writable Blu-ray discs, but they're not going to be ending production on Blu-ray single-use discs. The Blu-rays that they sell to movie studios to distribute a film, those aren't getting touched at all. But then we also saw Redbox file for bankruptcy, and all of those little Redbox kiosks are going out of business, which is really, really sad. I think in an era where consumers are a little frustrated with their streaming options, libraries are constantly changing, prices are climbing. This is kind of the golden age of getting the best quality of a movie on a little spinning disc that you can own. So I've been back to buying 4K Blu-rays and ripping them for my ridiculous Plex library. This is a movie I know I love, that I know I'm going to rewatch at some point and probably regularly for the way that I'm constantly chewing through movies. Then it doesn't make any sense to try and hope that it's on Hulu while I'm paying for Hulu. I'll just buy the movie and then I always have access to it. I can always watch it exactly when I want. I know exactly where it is. So yeah, my Plex library has gotten pretty ridiculous because of stuff like that. DTNL. The real question, Juan, is how many Taylor's version albums do you have? So I don't. I don't have any of Taylor's version's albums because they're all on Qobuz. But let me tell you, if you were to look at my Qobuz listening history, it would be very eclectic. My daughter is probably responsible for 60% of the streaming on my Qobuz account. I only pay for a single. I don't have like the family plan, so it's like we only get one user at a time kind of a thing. But usually the stuff that we listen to a lot, I mean, I will be in the car. So it's still on my phone connected to the car and then Qobuz is playing, but she's in control of what we're listening to. So the entire Taylor Swift library has the Taylor versions. We do not listen to the older garbage, mind you. The Taylor versions have gotten regular rotation. We have contributed money to Taylor Swift through the licensing fees that are being paid out by Qobuz on their service. Yeah, DJ Lex. Yup. Her playlist is a banger. It just has some real deep cuts on there too. Like when my daughter said, "Hey, I want to put Poppy on my playlist," I was like, "Heck yeah, you do! Heck yeah, you do!" So some really good stuff on there. Again, as cultivated by an 8-year-old, so you have to keep your expectations in check. She's put together a really good sing along girl pop power anthem playlist, and there's some really fun songs to belt while you're sitting in traffic. So we had one more quick article here, and I just wanted to showcase this. It's in the title of the stream this week. Commission sends preliminary findings to X, Twitter, for breach of the Digital Services Act. And then this is the actual official write-up from the EU, the European Commission, as to the results that their regulators have found in their investigation. First, these are quotes from the actual press release. First, X designs and operates its interface for the, quote, verified accounts with the, quote, blue checkmark in a way that does not correspond to industry practice and deceives users, since anyone could subscribe to obtain such a verified status. It negatively affects users' ability to make free and informed decisions about the authenticity of the accounts and the content they interact with. There is evidence of motivated malicious actors abusing the verified accounts to deceive users. Second, X does not comply with the required transparency on advertising, as it does not provide a searchable and reliable advertisement repository, but instead put in place design features and access barriers that make the repository unfit for its transparency purpose towards users. In particular, the design does not allow for the required supervision and research into emerging risks brought about by the distribution of advertising online. And third, X fails to provide access to its public data to researchers in line with the conditions set out in the DSA. In particular, X prohibits eligible researchers from independently accessing its public data, such as by scraping, as stated in its terms of service. In addition, X's process to grant eligible researchers access to its application programming interface, its API, appears to dissuade researchers from carrying out their research projects or leave them with no other choice than to pay disproportionately high fees. So, I feel like over the last year, we all would have said, yeah, these are problems. And this is why the wheels, the machinery of regulating, of law, of these kinds of business practices through regulators and different governments is so slow to operate. But every single one of these major points is a point that we've been bringing up. I mean, especially the first one. If you're going to make the blue check mark a paid experience, then there's no verification. Anyone who pays for it has a blue check mark. All you've shown is that this account has paid for a blue check mark. And that's insufficient. There was a reason why original Twitter had a process to verify different users who could be impersonated or you could abuse certain types of information and communication on Twitter. So what I'll be curious to see, hold on one second. What I'll be curious to see is also, since X has done this, since Twitter has gone to paid check marks, Facebook has too. If I go to Instagram, there's like this paid verification process, which doesn't seem dramatically different. And so now, if Twitter is tagged for this blue checkmark fiasco that Elon Musk has created, that has dramatically compromised the trust in Twitter as a platform, kind of the same thing needs to happen to Facebook. If your Instagram checkmark carries over into Threads, all you're doing is showing that you're not really someone who was worried about impersonation, but you wanted extra features and you wanted some kind of verification mark. It's why my favorite verification process is on Mastodon. When you see a check mark in someone's links on Mastodon, what you're saying is, I own a website and I put code on my website to show you that this Mastodon account is linked to this website and I have the authority to put code on my website. It's not perfect, and I'm sure other people could impersonate people on Mastodon, but it's a lot less likely that someone is going to go through the trouble, especially with Mastodon size, to go out there and make some kind of disinformation campaign work on Mastodon. So there's no payment, there's no third party. No one gets to say you're important enough to get a check mark on Mastodon. There's no gatekeeper. The only thing that matters is I have some other method of verifying for the audience that I am who I claim to be. So if you go to somegadgetguy.com, I own that website. You can look up the origin of that website. You can look up who owns that website. And on that website, there's a little plugin, and that plugin points you to my Mastodon account. And then that Mastodon account and my website have a handshake. And then on Mastodon, you see a little green check mark. And I think that is the most democratic way of opening this up. In the future, as we move forward through all of these ridiculous exercises in social media, it's really going to matter that you are able to verify who you are. It's really going to matter that someone is who they claim to be. The proliferation of disinformation, weaponized disinformation, active campaigns against public policy, encroaching on political discourse, and encouraging populations of people to do terrible things with misinformation, it's going to be so critical that we really can point to these things. If every social media platform is looking at Twitter and saying, well, I guess the best way to do that is to use a credit card. No, that's really not. Especially for all of the accounts that can just pay for a blue check mark that have no other kind of correlating authenticity or correlating verification of who that person is. So, it sucks. I would really read this EU. I'm going to be linking directly to the EU publication, not like another editorial talking about what the EU is doing here. Because, like, I get very concerned about how we safeguard free speech. But right now, I think the pendulum has swung so far in the opposite direction where populations of people are being encouraged to do terrible things and misinformation is spreading at a rate that is absolutely mind-boggling. Like back in the day, you would have like excuse me. Back in the day, you would have television and you would have like tons and tons of advertising and some little like things would kind of eke out into radio and news broadcasts and maybe some information got out that wasn't like very well verified. But you would have this corrective action where a newspaper or a radio station or a television could kind of break in with breaking news or correct for the information from a previous broadcast, and there wasn't this bombardment of conflicting information. Now, into the cable era, obviously with cable news that gets a lot more complicated, but into the internet era, we have no method to course correct on targeted bad actor information that is meant to harm populations of people. And Facebook seems unwilling to change, and Twitter seems unwilling to change. So, how do we go about correcting for that? I think there needs to be some kind of acknowledgement that while we want to protect earnest free speech, we're starting to get to situations where protected speech isn't absolute. Like if you yell fire in a crowded building. I know it's more complicated than that, and I'm grossly oversimplifying actual court decisions and what the free speech mandates, in our First Amendment. But we don't allow everything. We put some bumpers on, yeah, you can say this, and then we'll probably arrest you. We can acknowledge that certain types of actions that are meant to only cause harm to populations of people don't fall under the First Amendment. And our social media doesn't seem to have any of those bumpers or safeguards. We've protected the platform because of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, the CDA. We can protect the platform from what gets published on their platform. And that's correct. If some rogue state actor is trying to hurt people through social media, I don't believe Twitter should be held directly responsible for a piece of information that gets out because of one of the users on their platform. But then what do we do with the person that proliferated that information? And then what do we do with the people that spread that misinformation? This is a huge issue. I think this is an enormous problem. And unfortunately, I am not clever enough to come up with a solution that doesn't infringe on someone's First Amendment rights. But this is becoming increasingly something that I think needs to be examined. And I think it's increasingly something that needs to be acted upon. And this is a good step. What the EU is doing in targeting Twitter's monetization efforts, I think will help to improve the authenticity of speech on a platform like Twitter. And it's hilarious that we've gone through this miserable exercise with man baby Elon Musk to eventually arrive at, hey, Twitter was actually working way better before you took over. Maybe you should just go back to old Twitter. Because if not, I think it's time to stop giving Elon Musk warnings and it's time to start hammering Elon Musk with fines. I think we passed that point. But again, the machinery of law and regulating is very slow. Oh, Michael Corcoran, that's like another right to repair situation too. Um, for instance, it should be illegal for AT&T to require an active SIM to get a security update on an AT&T branded phone. Think of how many phones are less secure because of that, or in a landfill. And I feel like that also needs to go hand in hand with like Apple's security systems, where if you don't give Apple all of your location information and all of your neighbors' Wi-Fi and Bluetooth information, if you don't let Apple see everything, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS that your phone comes in contact with, well, they can't protect your phone. If your phone gets stolen, there's no way to make sure someone can't wipe it and reuse it. You just got to give Apple everything. You've got to give Apple every single nuanced byte of data that your phone comes in contact with. And then we can make sure that a password on your phone will prevent someone from wiping your phone and reusing it. But when IT departments and consumers have an iPad in their hands and it's the password got locked, well, Apple can't do anything. Oh, I guess you'll just have to buy new gear. And we have mountains of e-waste, especially in the school districts here in Southern California. We have mountains of e-waste of devices that just are password locked. Oh well, nothing we can do. I guess you just got to throw all that stuff away and buy new iPads and new MacBooks and stuff. It's a shame. I really wish something could be different, but Apple designed it that way, so there's just no way around it. So yeah, I mean the AT&T situation is spot on. I've got AT&T phones that like never got updates because I don't have a current AT&T SIM. That should be the F illegal. So I want to wrap up this week's show. Oh, I didn't even bring up Samsung's website. I'm real good at doing the podcasting. I've actually, my voice has held out better than I expected it would. I apologize for all the sniffling and all of the coughing and stuff. But I'm gonna take one more drink of coffee here, and let's just spend a little time unpacking Samsung Unpacked. I feel someone in the comments was dang it. I thought I was gonna get ahead of that cough. Someone in the comments, was there something that surprised you? I feel that for the major tech companies like Apple's most recent keynotes, Samsung's most recent keynotes, Google's most recent keynotes, 2024 is shaping up to be a boringly iterative year for North American consumers. I feel the most exciting aspects of mobile, smartphones, tablets, wearables, etc. I feel the most exciting aspects have been like Xiaomi and Honor and Vivo internationally. Especially seeing some of those companies start opening up into international sales again, where those products would only be sold in China. That to me has been the exciting stuff. North America has been dead. It's so boring right now. But if there was something that really kind of took you by surprise, or you thought, "Hey, that's really going to be cool," drop me a comment, like in the chat here, and I'm going to drink a little coffee, drink a little water, and then let's talk Samsung because there are improvements and there are some things that I think consumers will appreciate. But there's also a ton of like AI stuff that I think is still mostly investor bait and isn't really going to move the needle on a lot of these consumer experiences. Okay. Let's see. Gabaletta saying, I am not impressed with this year's Samsung launch. The Tech Boy is saying, they look like Apple for crying out loud. I mean, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that their two major phone iterations are still things that Apple refuses to touch. J-Man 150, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is amazing. I don't think anyone's arguing with that. Okay, Pup on Tech. I think this is one of the key. This to me is one of the most important aspects of Samsung's announcements. I was surprised that they didn't have more things locked under subscriptions, to be honest. I completely agree with you there. We'll get into a couple of the individual announcements here, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. JMan150 says, I can't believe the price increases on the Pixel 9 lineup. We'll be talking about that in a future podcast, I'm sure. Goat V8, the ring is new. Kind of cool. And Dr. Claude, this year's Samsung lot is kind of validating the Sam Apple iGalaxy name. That is one of my favorite little snarky abbreviations is talking about Sam Apple. So I'm here at the Samsung website, and I think we can glaze over the phones. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time. Z Fold 6, it's a spec bump, and I know that there have been some changes to the outer. Uh, Come on, I just want to go. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. Yes, I want to exit. Give me design. Let's just try the design. So I know there have been some recent changes to the overall form factor. The aspect ratio has changed up a little bit. The outer display, it looks a little bit more like we had someone on the Patreon, not the Patreon, on the Discord. Who was it? It was Ladies Man. Yeah, I think it was Ladies Man. Went hands on, and the outer display now looks a little more like an Xperia 5 Mark 5. Now, if you remember, the Xperia 5 Mark 5 was demonstrated to be a completely unusable phone. If anyone remembers the really insightful examination by Austin Evans that Sony can't make anything functional, and where they angled an iPhone to make the iPhone look way shorter, and it was an iPhone mini against the Xperia 5 Mark 5 to show how comically absurdly disproportionate the Xperia 5 Mark 5 was. I mean, because they did the Xperia 5 dead straight on, a rectangle like out of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then they angled and leaned the iPhone Mini to show how absurd that aspect ratio was. But now Samsung got it right. It's almost exactly the same proportions as the Xperia 5 Mark 5, but again, now that Samsung's done it, that's good. We like that. So in terms of design, I look at this and I think, well, I already have a OnePlus Open, and I'm very happy with my OnePlus Open and how the OnePlus Open is closed and it's a tighter hinge and these really pretty flat sides. But I think the thing that we were really all anxious about was better cameras. We've seen Oppo and OnePlus and Honor deliver better cameras on foldables. I think even Xiaomi's foldables, and definitely Huawei's foldables, I mean, they don't compare against their most expensive standalone phones, but they're better optical systems than what Samsung is accomplishing here. So we knew that we were in line for a processor bump. It's got a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in there. Definitely was the right call instead of using a Samsung Exynos. You're getting improved performance, you're getting better battery life, you're getting that nudge for machine learning capabilities, so you're getting a more powerful NPU. All of those things are expected. I If you're going to go to the effort of changing the frame and changing the aspect ratio and printing out new inner displays to fit that shape on a product that is going to close in on $2,000, I think it's a missed opportunity to not spruce up the cameras a little. And you didn't have to go nuts, but this is also part of the thing that's really souring me on phones like the S24 and the S24 Plus. They close in on $1,000, and I can pick up a OnePlus 12 that utterly embarrasses the photography hardware that we see in $1,000 Galaxy phone. And the cameras on their $2,000 foldable don't improve much on a phone that costs half the price. So we get this weird stratification. We get the Ultra, which is the absolute productivity phone of the year. S24, or excuse me, the Note 24 is the crown jewel. I want to get work done on my phone, and it has really good cameras. That's the meal ticket here in the United States. I have issues with a $2,000 foldable not stepping up, not closing the gap. I had no illusions that a Z Fold 6 was going to match a Note 24. No, if you understand optical physics, there was no way you were rationally expecting that. But then I reach over to my desk here, and yet it's got kind of a big lump on the back of one of the panels. But against Z Fold against Z Fold 6, there is no situation where I would choose Z Fold 6 over my OnePlus Open for photography. The cameras here are stonking good. And all three of them bring improvements to the table as opposed to what's kind of going down with Z Fold 6. Well, let me just kind of clear my throat here. So in terms of personal preferences, like I really like the subtle change to the outer display. I was being really snarky about the Xperia 5 Mark 5, but I liked the Xperia 5 Mark 5. And I think kind of that subtle broadening helps it be a bit more phone-like. I really don't get these people that say things like, "Well, I like my Z Fold because it's less like a phone when it's closed and then a squarer tablet when it's open." Because I really love that my OnePlus Open just feels like a regular phone when it's closed. And now I think the Z Fold 6 kind of closes in on that usability. I feel like that subtle change to the outer dimensions of the outer display, that's a positive. As a personal preference, as I'm sitting here with the Open and with my Pixel Fold, I still like the Pixel Fold overall form factor better. I still feel the hinge is 90 degrees wrong on the Z Fold 6. That if you turned the hinge and you made it a little bit more book-like, that changes up the experience significantly more. And it's also one of the things that because the OnePlus Open is so phone-like, that when you open the Open, it's almost a little too square. So the aspect ratio and the form factor of the Pixel Fold to me is more appealing. All personal preferences. Everyone is going to appreciate different design, different features, different form factors, but I love this little book where it's like a little digital moleskin, and when you open it up, it's a bit more rectangular than it is square, and the hinge is perfectly lined up for putting two apps side by side, or if like you're reading comics or if you're reading a book, it's a more organic, we understand what this feels like because we've had little notebooks before. Sorry, I digress. Z Fold 6 and Z Flip. I think one of the things that I'll be curious to see. So, and I'd like to open this up for the chat also. How much life do we think there is in the mini tablet that folds into a phone form factor device? I don't know that the folding tablet has properly broken 2% of any company's sales. But what's really taking off are the flip style phones. Those are selling significantly more, an order of magnitude more than the folding mini tablet. I was a fan of the Duo. I like the Pixel's form factor. I like the OnePlus's performance. I like these, let's expand, have more canvas. It's nice to have a tablet in your pocket. I totally get it. But at the same time, I'm also a big fan of like wearable displays, like just putting glasses on my face that project out a much larger canvas than what I can ever fit in my pocket. So if I need to make a compromise, I can kind of make a pretty good compromise there. It's silly, like even little things. I was on the flight out to the UK and I was watching movies on VLC, and now VLC understands when it's connected to an external display on Android. So you plug in your glasses and the screen goes OLED dark. It's still technically on and you can still swipe the screen to control playback, but it's VLC is trying to make it the lowest possible power draw on the phone, and I've got a full canvas second display on my headset. It's doing the thing that LumaFusion does, where if you plug a display into an Android phone on LumaFusion, you can tap a little icon and your preview goes to the second display while all of your editing tools are on the phone or the tablet. Apps are starting to become second display aware even on Android, which is really exciting stuff. So if that's the kind of experience we're building into, like the PowerPoint style presentation experience, I can control the presentation from my phone and send it to another display. So the audience sees one thing and I have the controls on the other device. If that's what we can do, doesn't it make the tablet, the folding mini tablet, a little less useful? I need all this extra space. Well, I can create a lot of this extra space with something else. And I know I'm not trying to say one directly replaces the other, but I'm just saying as we're closing in on $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 to make a bendy, foldy plastic screen, it makes sense to me that the most aggressive growth has been in the flip phone. It's familiar, it's nostalgic. I love closing the phone to hang up on people. People get that, they understand it. We still have the problem of, well, why do I want to own a tablet? Right? Think of all the tech reviews that you've read or all the tech videos that you've watched, like, a tablet is a solution in search of a problem. And then they never talk about the problems it really does solve. Hold on, let me see if there were any comments here. I'm going to take another quick drink. Goat V8, I would love a foldable, but they're just outside of my price range. From Aditya, the folding tablet fold series, in my opinion, is merely a distraction. The true end goal is something in between the X Real and the Focal by North, minimally intrusive until I want the screen to be my only focus. You know, I'm kind of on board a good heads-up display. Yeah, Gabaletta. I think Motorola realized this early on, and it's why they only sell a flip phone rather than a folding tablet. And for that one, I wonder if part of it was Lenovo compartmentalizing. A folding laptop is a Lenovo thing. A folding flip phone is a Motorola thing because Motorola used to sell flip phones. But there's no Venn diagram overlap between those philosophies. So there is no folding tablet from Motorola, and there is no pocketable communication device that folds from Lenovo. Did I say those right? My brain is foggy right now. Vazikos is saying the big screen inside should be 16 by 9 or 16 by 10, like a laptop aspect ratio. My opinion is more video consuming focused. I think it's really difficult to do that well. And that's why we've seen like mock-ups and prototypes on trifolds. So if you have 3, you can kind of create the more phone-like experience, but you've got to sandwich a lot of extra guts. I'd be curious if anyone were to come out with a 3x2 aspect ratio display that kind of folds up and becomes it would be an awkward phone shape, but you know, again, look at the popularity of productivity. 3x2 has reached that. Well, it's really great for putting two documents side by side. My Surface laptop is a 3x2 aspect ratio display. I'd be curious to see if maybe that's one of the compromises. Again, I want to see more rectangular than square, but you have to fold that rectangle in half. So how you fold the rectangle in half really matters to the folded experience, and it's very complicated. No one has got it completely right. I still feel like one of the closest has been the Surface Duo. Sorry, let me catch back up. Yeah, Dr. Claude, the new Razor is really looking good in the current generation, even having a Plus model. And it's interesting to see. I'd love to see what the sales numbers really look like looking at Z Flip. I have to imagine Z Flip is just wiping the floor with any other flip style phone right now, but Moto is probably chipping away at that market share. Yeah, J-Man 150. I think I remember hearing recently that Huawei might be doing a trifold 10-inch foldable. I don't know if it's likely we'll see a consumer-facing product this year, but even TCL had mock-ups and prototypes. The hinges exist. The display technology is there, but it radically changes the durability of a product where you've got different edges and different hinges and different bend and fold points. It was hard enough for us to get a single crease going. Two creases on a consumer durable product is going to be significantly more difficult than just one crease. It's not twice as difficult, it's like 10 times more difficult to make that a product that consumers can really use and live with. Well, and Goat V8. That's why I said I kind of like what that the Duo form factor the best. Isn't that what the Duo is? Just split screens, obviously. Um, that's why I kind of keep pointing back to the Duo having some really good ideas in terms of multitasking, productivity, putting information side by side, and having that usable canvas in the way that we would use a Surface Pro or a Surface laptop. That's why I keep pointing back to the Duos. I think the Duos got it right. So, um, hold on one second. Oh, Tech Boy, I like the BlackBerry Passport. Mine's right over there. And I just can't telekinesis my way into bringing it onto the show, but I can. It's the bookshelf. The BlackBerry Passport was so good. There was also was that weird LG, and I can't remember what it was called. But I mean, it was like I want to say it was back in like the lollipop days, and it had a basic capacitive stylus, and it was just a big squarish phone thing. I think Verizon did sell it, but it was more pushed internationally. And that thing was just phenomenal. It was just really good hardware. And when you really expand the canvas and it's squarer and you have more space to use stuff on, it's one of the reasons why I keep pointing to the Pixel Fold form factor. Going a little chubbier, going a little squarer on that aspect ratio, it improves a lot of interactions. It changes up some things, like you have a lot of letterboxing and pillar boxing for video, so that can be kind of a bummer. But productivity, I think, is improved by having a slightly squarer shape than a taller or narrower shape. So, oh, Gavaletta. Not only that one, now you have the middle of the screen sandwiched in the middle. I don't want to think about what that could do to the screen when bent, and you have lint and dust and dirt trapped in between there. Again, I am always crazy impressed by the OnePlus Open and how tight this hinge is. That when you open it, it's so respectably flat, and the crease is a little less visible than Samsung's crease. But when I close this up, I'm also very grateful that I still have some kind of case that does close up the few little gaps close to the hinge. So you get a bit less of the sort of the lint and the dust and the grime and the grit that might get in there. My Open is filthy. I need to clean this thing. I've been using it a lot because I've been mostly invalid in bed. So I did want to get on to here. Let me go back to Samsung's main page, and I want to get. Hold. I can't say I was particularly impressed with the watch or the Galaxy Buds announcement. I'm not going to hammer Samsung too hard for the Galaxy Buds. So, screen sharing right here. Here's the Galaxy Buds 3 Pro, and they look like AirPods. The case is AirPod similar, where there's kind of that vertical slot in. It's a little different. Like, for example, I gave the OnePlus Buds a positive review, but they don't fit my ears very well. Again, there are almost none of these cut off stock style earbuds that seem to fit and stay in place in my ears, where if I kind of move my jaw around, they don't kind of pop back out. There's something about the way that the stock kind of puts pressure on the bottom part of my earlobe, and they all pop out. But if you give me a real good button design, I wedge those things in there, they're good to go. And it's also why I kind of like IEMs that have hooks over the top of the ear, because it's not the cable going down past my earlobe. You twist and the cable goes up and over the ear. That works better for me too. I think the thing that Samsung stumbled with, the OnePlus Buds look a little like AirPods, but even the case is a flat compact style case, whereas Samsung couldn't even be bothered to sort of reimagine what an earbud case would look like. It's that vertical slot load that is very similar to the AirPods Pro. So I get it. We all know this about Samsung. They're kind of thirsty to copy anything else that seems successful. And in this space right now, that's Apple. So they're going to go after Apple. I think the more egregious misstep for Samsung was the watch. So when we look at the Galaxy Watch Ultra, here, let me just put that in a new tab. When we look at the Galaxy Watch Ultra, it's so obnoxiously obvious who Samsung is trying to emulate in trying to make a bigger, bolder watch. And it also looks like the incredible compromise of pricing. So this design language is so cynical to me. We want the big, squarish, chunky frame, and then it'll look kind of like you're wearing an Apple Watch. But we're not going to build components specifically for that frame because that would be more expensive. So we're sticking with a circular watch face on a square, chunky frame. So we're copying Apple, but we're also showing users the compromises of us trying to copy Apple with an expensive watch, but try and keep the manufacturing as cheap as we can. And that's just not exciting to me. That doesn't speak to the practices of a market leader in consumer electronics. That to me is a cynical approach to aping a popular product from your chief competitor and then still not going all the way. If Galaxy Watch Ultra had had a redesigned display specifically for that frame, yes, it probably would have looked even more Apple Watch-like, but you would have said, this is built for this device. This is not an extra part that they had from their other watches that they just stapled on to an Apple Watch copycat. And that to me is what really stings. I was going through, my mom, her Fitbit died, and I had, what was it? It wasn't the Xiaomi. Which one did I give her? Was it I think it might have been a Poco. It was one of the little just fitness bands. And again, not as a permanent solution, but she just wanted something to track her workouts, track her steps, keep track of her heart rate. And so I got her, I think it was one of the little Poco bands. And I set it up on her phone, put it on her wrist. And she's sort of fine for now. She'll eventually want to get like a proper replacement, but this was just to kind of tide her over. She's not interested in an Apple Watch. She's not particularly interested in a Wear OS watch because they're all too big for her wrist. The closest we might be able to point her towards would be a Pixel Watch 2. I've now forgotten why I started this story. But let me just kind of eject. Sorry, excuse me. Let me just kind of eject there. This is a $600 watch, and I don't think Samsung has done enough to show that they're trying to address their market presence, their presentation, their feature set. It just seems too much like Apple did this, Apple was successful at it, so now we can do it too. And especially because Samsung has a history and a track record of pushing the envelope on this kind of design. The Frontier watches, gorgeous timepieces that would go toe to toe with the best like Huawei fitness trackers in terms of hardware. Like, genuinely loved that hardware as much as I despise Samsung as a manufacturer. And then, I remember now why. So anyway, the story about my mom getting this little fitness band wasn't as important. I got sidetracked on that part. But she's digging the little fitness band, and she'll stick with it until she needs to get like a new Fitbit or something like that. Sorry, when I was trying to find her a temporary replacement, I pulled out my big old Rubbermaid box of old watches, and right on top was that big, beautiful bangle of a Samsung Galaxy Watch. I forget exactly what the model was, Galaxy Watch S or something like that. But it was a mini phone, a curved OLED mini phone with a home button on it, and the watch strap that was really a ring around the phone unit that would then clamp on your wrist. And I sat there and I held it for a minute. It still was functional a couple years ago. I used to pair it with my Galaxy S10e. Occasionally, I would trot it out and still use it. It was still, again, this was like 3 years ago. This was still a great smartwatch, data wrist driven experience. It was phenomenal. And that Samsung is so far gone. The Samsung that could come out with an impressive display of something bold. The Galaxy Watch Ultra is not an impressive display, and it's not particularly bold. It's kind of ugly. It's a mishmash of conflicting design aesthetics and elements. And I am not overly precious about the aesthetic of a timepiece, but I like watches. I like analog watches. I like digital watches. I like fitness bands, and I like smartwatches. I like putting things on my wrist that are functional and can be talking points and can be conversation starters and are interesting. And that I purposely keep different smartwatches and different fitness bands for her. Also, like, am I dressing up or am I dressing down? Am I working out or am I going out? And I miss the Samsung that would do something that really pushed the boundaries on what a wearable could be. And the Galaxy Watch Ultra just ain't it. Now, I'm happy people locked into the Samsung ecosystem now have a solution for a potentially more durable, better battery life device. But all this way, look at what TicWatch has done to get you 4 days of runtime on Wear OS. Look at what OnePlus is doing. Right now, the OnePlus Watch 2 is available. I've got a low battery warning at 17%. 17% battery, I can still do this for a whole other day. I still get a day of runtime at this low battery 17%. Or I can flip it into RTOS mode and get 2 days of runtime as an RTOS fitness tracking watch that will still give me notifications, still paired to my phone, Bluetooth support, track all my data, send it all to my phone. It's still a completely, and get notifications. I think I might have said that already. Anyway, right now, this watch is $250. You go and shop it, it's on sale. And I think OnePlus will even throw in like some Nord Bluetooth earbuds for the price of that watch. Samsung reduced their overall battery runtime from Watch 5 to Watch 6. And now their solution to getting you more runtime out in the field is this abomination, the Galaxy Watch Ultra. And it's so ugly. And it does not work. And I hate this circle face with square frame. It's just not what I wanted to see. So I'm very disappointed in the watch. I really feel the watch is a critical misstep because I look at this and I think if this is the best that Android manufacturers have to offer, I might as well just go and get an Apple Watch. And if I'm going to get the Apple Watch, well, I might as well go and get the iPhone. And it shouldn't be surprising to us at all that premium Android sales are still horrifically in the toilet. That there has been so little growth. Like, we're so starved for any kind of good news that when we look at like a nudge in sales numbers for the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Oh, we sold more Note 24s this year than we did last year. That's not really great news considering how premium Android sales have plummeted since the Galaxy S20. From the S10 to the S20 to the S21 was roughly what? Like a 40% drop in phone sales over $400. And we're nowhere near climbing out of that gulch. So I'm increasingly disappointed that if this is the presentation that Samsung is going to offer for a wearable, it just reinforces why you shouldn't deal with copycats and you should just buy the original. If Samsung's just going to copy Apple, maybe I should just get the thing that they copied instead of getting the copycat. And I know it's not that simple, but that's the kind of marketing and the kind of media presentation and the kind of consumer opinion of why Androids seem cheap. And we know that Samsung can do better because they've done different, exciting, bold things in the past. I would love a follow up to that Galaxy Watch S. Just give me something like give me that cuff. Give me something bold. Give me something different. And Samsung just is incapable of making that step right now. Now, the last thing that I wanted to bring up, and it's not on their front page. Well, let me take a quick drink of water here. I was hoping it would be kind of stacked in all of this. Top deals, appliances. I don't care about appliances. Where is? Let me see if they're in their wellness partners. Ultimate in fitness. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I would have expected this to be sort of front and center on the Samsung website. And I know I'm just missing it and it's somewhere stupid. Ah, here we go. Let me go to this menu. Come on. And go down to here and click on this. And that opens up another menu. And now, the one thing that I was very pleasantly surprised by, and it was mentioned earlier here in the podcast, the Galaxy Ring is now available for pre order. And again, it's pricey. This is a $400 wearable accessory. I think this is really sleek and simple design for, I mean, a ring shouldn't be anything that looks too techy or stands out as something different. I think it'll be curious to see how consumers react to this because the smaller your ring size, the less battery life you get. And I don't know that consumers are properly educated. Like, I don't know that they'll know to expect those fundamental differences. But for $400, like, oh, well, you can go and get other fitness tracking rings that have been around for longer for a lot less. But all of those other ring solutions come with bigger subscription fees. So it's like the Aura ring is probably one of the more popular. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Oura? Is it Aura? Aura? I actually don't know how to say that. I've only ever read it and I haven't watched any videos on it. So when you look at that ring, to get kind of the full scope of what that ring can deliver in plugging in. So like when I did that weird vibrating fitness wellness band, I did a sponsored video. I can't remember the name of that company now. It's on top of my bookshelf. One of the things that they used to track the effectiveness of this vibration wellness puck was the Aura ring. So there were ways that you could plug in your stress levels and sleep and activity into this other band that would then vibrate, that was supposed to like send signals to the body so that you could meditate better or rest better or recover better. Very difficult to kind of verify those claims, especially as a singular user, a scientific study of one participant. But the Aura Ring comes with some heavier fees to get that more granular data tracking. So I got to give Samsung a kudos here, where if you're in the Samsung ecosystem and you're confident that you're not going to be switching your phone, you're buying accessories that are going to keep you using Galaxy phones, I have to put that up front. It at least comes with the perk that their expensive ring doesn't hit you for a bunch of additional fees and charges and subscription costs on the back end. So over time, literally into your first year of owning a Samsung Ring versus owning an Aura Ring, the Aura Ring is already more expensive. And then it keeps getting more expensive if you expect that this is an accessory that should hopefully last you more than a year. I'm very anxious about making more of these devices that have tiny little batteries that are probably impossible to repair, but knowing that there's already a cottage industry of making this solution, at least there aren't additional costs to Samsung's option here. So out of the entire presentation, we were talking about fold and flip, the new Galaxy Buds that I guess whatever, that's fine. I'm not really overly dramatically impressed by anything that's happening with Bluetooth audio right now. Excuse me, Bluetooth earbuds right now. Instead, I'm trying to see like, is it more exciting if we see better noise reduction technologies fall into earbuds that are cheaper and cheaper and cheaper? If they're already going to be kind of disposable after 2 years, at least are we getting better tech at lower prices? As much as I really hate the Galaxy Watch Ultra, I was really pleasantly surprised by the initial launch and the initial conversation around the Galaxy Ring. So that's the one. That was the one that it kept me from just completely eye rolling to the point of dislocating an eyeball from this last Samsung Unpacked. I need Samsung to step up. There is still so much potential and so much more life in the smartphone. There's still so much more opportunity in the wearable. And we've been playing this wait and see game for so long. Like, did anybody else catch there was like another rumor or a leak article like, ooh, Samsung is getting ready to show off more about their XR headset in 2025 for a potential release in 2026? Samsung convinced Google to kill Project Iris and give us a simpler heads up display, text to speech, speech to text, give us those translation capabilities in real time, and a better notification system in something that looked like we would want to wear it on our face. Samsung said, hey, no, you can't do hardware and software. So if we're going to use Google software to drive these experiences, Google, you can't do hardware. And we ended up sitting on Project Iris so that Samsung could move forward with their XR headset that would eventually compete against Vision Pro in 2026. It's gutting. We could have been iterating on all of these experiences and learning more from consumers and putting out better dev kits and building the applications, finding the killer apps that would really drive all of this stuff. And I get to the end of Samsung Unpacked July 2024, and the most that I can really kind of showcase, the best that I can say, hey, kudos Samsung, is you're not raking your users for a subscription fee on your $400 health tracking ring. And I want to be more excited than that. I want to be more, I want to be looking forward to more than that. So, anyway, um, Ted is asking, did Samsung expand on anything about the Find My network or S Health? I think Samsung has actually been surprisingly guarded and quiet about Find My because they had their own trackers and tags. Um, it seems like that's kind of a direct competition to the products and accessories and additional value added purchases that Samsung was hoping to build on their own. So I'll be curious to see how they play that out, but I would imagine Samsung is going to reluctantly join the Find My network probably in 2025. So as we get closer to the next Galaxy launch, the S25 launch, I bet you there is an accessory line that comes with Galaxy phones that then complements the Google Find My network, but it'll be a quieter kind of push, sort of in line with like how they merged Nearby Share and Quick Share. It like it benefits Samsung and it made Samsung look good that they were cooperating, but I think it'll be a quieter transition, not, oh, we're totally doing Find My now, because for them it was this was their platform, and Google is kind of stepping on their platform. So, sorry, I can't read all that in detail. I've gone way longer than I thought I was going to be able to do. I'm really proud of me. This was another 2-hour podcast. Woohoo! We got to wrap this up because I am now actively starting to fall apart. And there is some other stuff that I need to get done today. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Apologies again, just for all of the biology that you have been subjected to in listening or in viewing this week's podcast. But again, just important for me to kind of get back in, see some of these fine folks here, have some of these really fun conversations, and it was really what I needed, because I've been quarantined and sort of sequestered in my own bedroom for so long that it felt good. It felt getting this all set up and having these kinds of chats. So there will be some more stuff out this week. I can't claim to know what my release schedule is going to look like. I'm hoping to be in even better shape for Thursday so I can have another chat with TK. We can do another live stream on Thursday. And of course, there's a whole week of people putting out fun streams and good videos and fun conversations. So be on the lookout for all of our friends in that have been in the chat, and then of course in our subscription feeds. Folks, I want you to have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I want you to take care of yourselves so you can keep taking care of others. Be the awesome tech neighbors that I know you can be. I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Almost got the landing on that one. Be safe. Take care. I love you all. I'll catch you back.